Hello viewers from wherever you're watching us from. You're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and we're broadcasting live from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. My name is Aliou Cisse, and it's now time for your weekly State of Affairs program. Well, last week, the government of the Gambia, through the Minister of Justice, announced that it has considered and reviewed the 2020 draft constitution, which it said is already gazetted and will be presented to the National Assembly. Well, since the announcement was made, there have been divergent reactions to the 2024 draft constitution, which according to many has been doctored. There are so many omissions as far as the 2020 original draft constitution is concerned. And joining me this week to discuss, the 2024 draft constitution, I have in the studio. On my left, I have lawyer Abdoulaye Fati, who is the Secretary General of the Gambia Bar Association. Lawyer Fati, good to have you on the program.
Thank you so much.
And also on the program, I have Lamin K. Saidi, who is advisor to the President. Okay, good to have you on the program.
It's a pleasure. Thank
and
you.
We will also be joined on the program live from the United States of America by Saini M.K. Marena, who is former head of media and communications with the Constitutional Review Commission, and he is also the founder and editor of the Alcamba Times. Okay, let me start with you. Because when you look at the reactions from the public regarding this 2024 draft constitution, what do you make of the reactions so far?
Thank you very much for the invite. I also want to thank the Fati Kunda.
Yeah.
I'm sure he must have eaten
I know.
a lot of food before coming.
Yeah.
So it's a pleasure to share the platform with him. Aliou, as a government, we listen to the citizenry and we take into account the concerns of the citizens of this country, because that is what the Gambians call for, that is what the Gambians voted for. And it is President Barrow that they trusted with the mandate to administer the affairs of this country. Therefore, it is obligatory on us as a government to listen to the views of the public. However, in that listening, it does not imply that everything that has been said in the public space is valid or can be taken on board in terms of, legislations or so forth. But it is important to a great extent to pay attention to the concerns of the citizens. And the government, under leadership of His Excellency President Barrow, is very conscious of that fact. And that is why sometimes in the administration, under his administration, sometimes you see there will be certain decisions taken. And again, also, depending on, due to the public reaction, the government sometimes consider the feelings of Gambians, just to make sure that the governance administration aligned with the Gambians' feeling. So we are cognizant of that fact. However, the government has a mandate to execute, and in doing so, it will do without fear or favor.
Without fear or favor, who actually revised this draft constitution?
Okay, I'm not the government spokesperson.
Yeah.
Spokesperson.
But as an advisor to the president, you must have an idea.
Let me put that on records.
Yeah.
And I'm not attempting in any way to speak on behalf of the government in this matter. But as a public servant, I think these issues are of great concern to our Gambian public, and we owe it to the public to come and speak to Gambians, and also sound the opinions of Gambians and share with the principal.
The question
necessary.
is,
Now,
who revised?
yes, I'm setting
Yeah.
background to this, and it's important for our listeners or viewers to understand. The cabinet has presided over this document, just like they did before when the draft was out, when cabinet shared its opinion and shared with the public. So this was the cabinet.
Okay, thank you very much for letting us know. Lawyer Fati, you're the Secretary General of the Gambia Bar Association. I saw you also issued a statement. The association here. Have you at any point debated this 2024 draft? And if yes, what are your key takeaways from this revised draft constitution?
Like the rest of Gambian society, we knew there was some information in public that government was intending to gazette the draft. And obviously that was formalized last week. The Bar Association deliberated over the issue and we released a statement. And the one takeaway from our statement is that the GBA is concerned that the process leading up to the gazetting was not participatory, inclusive, and consultative. We applaud government for getting the document to take steps to resurrect the rejected draft constitution, but at the same time, it is equally important that all stakeholders are engaged and play a participatory and inclusive role in this process, because this is a national document. It is supposed to represent the will, the collective will of the Gambian people, and therefore, the entire process has to be owned by the Gambian people for different constituencies and stakeholders. So that is our position. We'll continue to engage all the key stakeholders in this process, and after the bar have had the opportunity to thoroughly look at this document, then our position will be clear in a position paper and through our engagements with the different stakeholders.
And Kay, I mean, you've heard from Lawyer Fati. He said, I mean, the process wasn't consultative, wasn't participatory. I mean, was there any consultation outside the executive?
Hello. In this respect, I'm not aware of a specific consultation that took place. But I know Cabinet has been presiding over this draft constitution. The point here is this. The draft constitution of 2020 has gone through an extensive consultation. Yeah. And when this consultation was done, the final report was presented to the president as the chief executive. Now, Cabinet presides over the same instrument as it was presented to them, and some objections were raised. Now, the citizens said they want the document to go to the National Assembly as it was. And this is what happened. But even the first draft, the Cabinet has objected to a lot. And we all know the fact that constitutions or any other legal instruments also are political, instruments, so to speak. The political parties, other section of society, all have their interests, like the Bar Association, etc., etc. And those interests have come to play. And Cabinet also exercises the same thing. Remember, the Cabinet presides over, to a large extent, the greater good of society as well. And when the draft constitution came out, different sectors of society also point red flags as well. For example, the Christian community has an objection in respect of, the secularity of the state. So other groups as well, for example, felt the remuneration for the judiciary was unfairly,
and for
placed.
Your party, it was about the two-term retroactive law.
Well, beyond that, probably that was the point that came on the limelight, or that was what the media picked up as a headline, because obviously it's marketable.
But that was a key highlight even during the debate.
Well, that has been a key highlight that any journalist would put a question to, a personnel from NPP or to any other party. But the frequent question that kept coming to us as NPP is, you rejected the 2020 constitution because of the retroactiveness of the retroactive clause. But beyond that, we remember, we are also the ruling government. So we align ourselves with the executive, so to speak.
And yes, like you said, I mean, I understand Saini Marina is now on the line from the United States of America. Like I said, he is the former head of media and communication, CRC, and also the founder and editor of the Alcamba Times. Saini, thank you so much for joining us on the program. I mean, what do you make of the government's decision to bring back the draft constitution? And, we have observed some changes in the 2024 draft constitution.
Thank you very much, Aliu, for having me on your show today. And then my word into the co-panelists on this show, Presidential Affairs Advisor to the President on Youth, Lamine Kesedi, and then Barrister Lawyer Abdoulaye Fati. who is the Secretary General of the Gambia Bar Association. It's unfortunate that the work that the CRC has done, crisscrossing the breadth and the length of the country to, make sure that the voices of the citizens are captured in this draft constitution, has defeated it. Because when you look at this draft constitution, it's one of the most progressive constitutions the Gambia would have. This is a constitution for the people and by the people. Gambians from all walks of life, both home and diaspora, took part in this drafting process. They took ownership of this document. They participated in this document to ensure that it, reflect their collective wills and aspiration. And when the government announced the reintroduction of this new draft to the parliament, we expected them to, to also come out clearly spelled. Why did they make certain amendment to the 2020 draft constitution like the CRC has done while submitting the report, the constitution to President Barrow in 2020, sorry. The constitution itself was accompanied by a report that detailed why each of those chapters, 319 chapters that were in this draft constitution, it explained them one by one why those chapters were put into the draft constitution. And we did not stop there. We also provided an explanatory note to still explain to Gambians why each of these single chapters were put there. But unfortunately, when the government published the 2024 draft, we noticed significant deletions and omission from our original draft.
Secret apps they don't
from
want you to know.
319 sections to 293 sections were deleted from the draft constitution without any explanation. And I think, the government or the executive owe Gambians that explanation. No constitution is perfect, but constitutions are built around the aspirations of people, and CRC has definitely captured this as per CRC Act of 2017.
And you just mentioned some of the amendments made. I mean, could you just share with us some of the key amendments that the executive has made to the 2020 original draft constitution?
Yes, one of the fundamental chapters, that's chapter 5 on leadership and integrity.
Okay.
This is a fundamental chapter on the constitution. When we tour the Gambia, rural Gambia, urban Gambia, Gambians in the diaspora, they express, their desire to have a leadership that is accountable to the people, to have a leadership that is devoid of, of drama, so they suggest that, leaders who are elected, should be accountable, and they must have at least an integrity, because a leadership without integrity is dangerous. And, with that chapter, the executive, the legislature, the judiciary are all held accountable to the masses. So this is a fundamental chapter. Removing that entire chapter tells you that this government is not serious about governance issues. They don't want to be held accountable.
Okay. Thank you, NK. Let me now bring in Lawyer Fatty and KC.
Can you have without holding leadership to account?
Exactly. Lawyer Fatty, you are far from MK. What's your take? Do you agree with him that that chapter should have been maintained?
Yes, entirely. And just before I actually go into that chapter, if if you look at chapter 3
Yeah.
on national values and principles,
Principles.
duties of citizens. So essentially, it is saying that the exercise and the enjoyment of rights and freedoms in the Constitution also come with duties and obligations. And it says shall, so that means these duties and obligations are not actually discretionary. So the Constitution is saying that there is a duty on all of us as citizens to promote and protect the prestige and the good reputation of this country, to do things that promote the welfare of other individuals, to work towards conscientiously to protect and preserve public property, to prevent the misuse and waste of public funds and property. So that is an obligation on us as citizens. And this is something that is common. The Kenyan Constitution 2010 also has a similar thing, national values and principles of governance. So if you look at that, so the Constitution is saying that us as citizens, we're not the duty bearers, but there is an obligation on us. So that is so that is one part. But then when you look at chapter 5 on leadership and integrity, it's been removed entirely. The essence and the rationale for chapter 5 is about promoting integrity in those that exercise public functions in the public life of the country. In essence, the values of integrity and good governance, essentially. It is concerned with doing things that are in the public interest, compliance with the Constitution, respect for the people and dignity to the office, to promote the rule of law, free, transparent and free elections, objectivity and impartiality in decision making. So if you look at all of these things, they have been removed. Kenyan Constitution 2010 also has leadership and integrity. South African Constitution chapter 10 also has in public administration basic values and principles of public administration. So, and this relates to all organs of the state and public enterprises. So essentially what he's saying, that those who are entrusted with exercising public power or powers that derive, that are public in nature, need to exercise those functions at all times with integrity, good governance, and along those lines. So the removal of this really undermines, and chapter 5 that's been removed is saying not only that chapter, that throughout the length and breadth of the Constitution, these values are consistent with all the other provisions as well. So its removal in a way undermines that aspiration. And also in chapter 5, it is saying that National Assembly shall pass a law, a statute, an act of parliament, to really, because if you look at the Constitution, that is almost like the skeleton. It's giving you, expound the aspirations and the ideals. So it is the act of parliament to pass a legislation to really operationalize, add substance and meat to these values and aspirations. Kenya passed the Leadership and Integrity Act of 2012. Their constitution was in 2010, and in 2012, their parliament actually passed it. So the deletion of this means that we have now been denied the opportunity for parliament to pass a law to really operationalize this, so that it becomes part and parcel of public life.
Kesedi, you are far from MK. Do you have any response to what he said?
Yes, you see, the 2020, MK, a good brother, works for the CRC as an administrator, and they were given a mandate. And in fact, in one of his analysis, he spoke about the illegality of the, of the actions of the cabinet, which I think really, I don't know what was the basis of that. The CRC was established by an act of parliament, and their mandate ends, and the CRC stands dissolved. Therefore, I don't see where that argument holds water. I want to say this, that the CRC was given a mandate, and I think it's important that we're honest to Gambians. The CRC was given a mandate. They have executed that mandate. Now, it couldn't pass through at the level of the parliament, and that is the best that could happen. The constitution was rejected. All forms of lobbying was happened. The civil society did their part. Government played their part. Political parties played their part. It couldn't crush. That's where it can end, because the power to to adopt a constitution lies in the hands of the parliament.
But
now,
there was an influence from the
of course,
executive.
Ali, you would have to expect influence. It comes from all angles.
Okay.
It comes from the Bar Association, it comes from the civil society or the civil society organization, it comes from the political parties. UDP, for example, maintain a position, the NPP, maintain another position. The cabinet makes some reservations. National Assembly members themselves make some reservations. However, the citizens said at the time, the civil society raised a concern that, look, don't touch anything. We want the constitution as it is. It never happened anywhere in the world.
And do you think it is right for the executive to tamper
Of course,
with the draft constitution?
Of course. Of course.
Honorable.
Well, let me give an explanation.
Yes.
You want to get to my brother.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Yeah, let me give.
Oh, okay.
Now, I'm saying this. This is an initiative by the cabinet to reintroduce the constitution that we have at hand. Okay. Remember, the CRC and its mandate ends. Now, we just have a document lying there. Now, the cabinet came up with an initiative to say, previously, in fact, we have an objection. We have concerns. Now, we are going to discuss these concerns and find a way of reaching consensus. Now, I'm saying this, and the decision of the cabinet is not final. And I think this is not what is also communicated to the citizenry, that cabinet has done their part and intends to reintroduce this constitution. If the power or the cabinet have all the powers to decide, probably, they would have just given us a constitution. Now, this matter is going back to the parliament for reintroduction.
But couldn't they have just reintroduced the whole original document back to parliament?
The whole original, introduction of the whole original is what resulted to its failure. You want us to take the same action again?
MK, I'm seeing you nodding your head. Do you agree with K. Sedi?
He may not agree with me.
I totally disagree with K. Sedi.
Okay.
Look, the executive has an arm of government, like other stakeholders were consulted during the drafting process. They brought in their recommendation to the CRC, like the judiciary, like the National Assembly. And some of their recommendations was considered during this drafting process. So to do justice with this document, the executive should present it like National Assembly for them to discuss the merit and the demerits of the Constitution again.
But I want to tell MK.
So let me ask.
I'm sorry.
Sedi,
I want to tell you, MK, that
what law give the government the power to amend this draft constitution and gazette it and later present it back to the parliament?
I will put that question to lawyer Fatih. He's a lawyer here. Yes, MK, I'll put that question to lawyer Fatih here. I mean, does the executive has the powers to tamper with the original 2020 draft constitution?
Okay, well...
Isn't that the work of the National Assembly?
Well, it can be yes and no.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any law that exclusively or expressly prohibits cabinet from tinkering with the document. That is one thing. But I think that is going to be looking at it in a very legalistic way. While I agree that Parliament, the cabinet may want to go through the document, but remember, the document under the CRC had already gone through a very thorough consultative process, both here and in the diaspora. Cabinet, like all the other stakeholders, also presented their position. Some were accepted, some were rejected. And I believe in the report and the explanatory notes, reasons were given why that outcome was the case. In this instance, if, for example, the changes were very insignificant, I don't think public would have been so much concerned or alarmed. But what we have here is a significant departure from the 2020 draft. And
the
the
whole
fact
chapter is removed.
whole chapter, and there are
Some of the sections which give the National Assembly the powers to confirm certain appointments by the president are now twisted, and exclusively saying the president in consultation with the Public Service Commission or the Judicial Service Commission.
Yeah.
So many the parliament wouldn't have that power now to confirm
So
certain
in a way,
appointments.
although I don't want to make this political, but there is this argument that, like Mr. Marina was saying, since cabinet presented their position, and not all was accepted, some were accepted and some were rejected. So this was a second bite at the cherry. So this was now cabinet saying, well, since it was rejected the first time, we will now go through the back door in a way to now insert our own, well, vested position in the document. But the danger of that is we have to remember that we have to look back at our very recent history and how the 1997 Constitution was amended so many times to perpetuate a certain system. It is out of that history that very early on in 2017 that we all agreed that as part of our transitional justice process, that a new constitution that speaks to our current realities, context, and circumstances needed to be made. So therefore, the 2020 draft embodies all these aspirations, also drawing inspiration from other countries, South Africa and Kenya, that had gone through similar experiences. So when Parliament unilaterally now decides to tamper, well, I wouldn't say
Cabinet.
tamper, when cabinet now decides to say, well, we will put this, we will add this, we will remove this, it has a danger of delegitimizing the process, and legitimacy is as important as the legal process in building a constitution.
Earlier on, you mentioned the issue of Chapter 5 being totally removed. I mean, the other thing also is regarding the term limits. I mean, earlier on, I spoke to a constitutional lawyer, Lamin J. Dabo, about his take on the removal of the Chapter 5 entirely, and of course, the issue of the retroactive law as far as the term limits is concerned. Let's take a listen as to what his views are. Lawyer Lamin J. Dabo.
Well, say for example, we were talking about Chapter 5, and the 2020 draft was completely removed. But that was welcome because Chapter 5 is not the provisions in Chapter 5 are not constitutional provisions. They are just moralistic considerations, and they don't belong in a constitution. When we are talking about constitution and its infringement, we are talking about things that we can really put our hands on. But, to preach morality, which was what happened under the previous Chapter 5, is of no use. So I'm glad it's all removed from the current constitution. Now, the current draft constitution. So the other issue is about the term limit. We have the term limit in the constitution. Obviously, there is an issue around it because some people are of the view that that term limit means the president should not be able to run in 2026. But I didn't read it like that. I believe that the document is not even law yet. So if it is not law, you cannot apply it to the president. Yes. So the retroactivity that was in the 2020 draft was removed, and rightly so, because a document that didn't come into light as a law cannot be used against the president. Even back in 2020, 2018-19, I argued against that. The retroactivity would not be in conformity with the legal provisions. So, but now that we have the term limit, it's a good start. It's just that it would give the current president, according to my interpretation, another potential 2 terms, but that is not illegal.
Well, Lawyer Fati, you have heard from Lawyer Dabo there, constitutional lawyer, saying he agrees with the removal of the Chapter 5, and of course, the retroactive law, for him is legal, just that, it now provides the president perhaps to serve another 10 years.
Yes, I was reacting earlier to Seni MK Marina's position. Look, what goes into the 2020 draft constitution was not, it didn't all come from Gambians. Like my brother said, some inspirations were drawn. In fact, people allege that some parts of the entire portion of the Kenyan constitution was put into our constitution. So telling me that cabinet cannot say, or cabinet cannot have, their opinion in our constitution, I think that is flawed. The citizens, all that the citizens said was not also put in the 2020 constitution. Now, I'm saying this. From the word go,
but KCD, there's nowhere in the world where you will have a constitution that will capture all
but exactly, that's what we are saying. That's what we are saying. Exactly, that's what cabinet is saying. That look, just like my brother Dabo said, is exactly. For example, I was going to say this. Chapter 5.
MK, when you look at the 2020 draft constitution, there's a part where it talks about the salary and other retirement benefits of a former president. It said, a person who, since leaving office, has been convicted of an offense relative to the period when he also served as president, against whom an advanced finding of abuse of office or corruption has been made by a commission of inquiry after leaving office. So meaning, you are going to lose all these benefits. This is removed in the 2024 redrafted constitution.
So this is what I'm saying. Look.
So why will you remove this part?
No, let me say.
What is the fear here?
No, let the cabinet explain that. I'm sure you will have the opportunity to hear from the cabinet their version, just like the CRC do. I'm saying, for example, when I look at this constitution, and what R. Dabo said is the bulkiness of this constitution. It's because we bring in so much moral issues. That you cannot really, like he said, you cannot lay hand on. And yes, and as much we want a progressive constitution. Remember again also, after having this constitution, there are certain provisions that can be, enforced or can be better explained through, other laws, for example, an act of parliament, etc., etc. I'm saying that this constitution, when introduced, is going through another process. Cabinet's decision on this constitution is not final. They have exercised a position on the constitution. This constitution that is currently being reintroduced. Now, when it goes to parliament, I'm sure there will be a lot of politics again. I'm sure the Bar Association will engage.
Yeah, just like
I'm sure the civil society. Exactly. Yeah. So, but Aliu, that's how democratic processes, are held. We have to also accept the process. We cannot impose anything on any of the arms of government. The executive, at least with good faith, and I want people to appreciate that, with good faith, notice that the Gambian government, the president, anytime you have a conversation with him, wish under his legacy, he have a new constitution, as Gambians desire. But how would a new constitution comes to play? We also have to respect the process.
And MK, do you agree with Kesedi? Like I said, the person I just quoted from the 2020 is totally removed, meaning, the president is now immune from any findings.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, Aliu, because a fundamental chapter like chapter 5, leadership and integrity, is entirely deleted from this CRC 2020 chapter. Tells you a lot about this government, how they care about of accountability and also holding public officials accountable. So it's important to note that, this was the wishes of majority of the Gambians that were consulted, both home and abroad. They were concerned that, during the previous regime, there was no accountability. The constitution was amended for more than 50 times without the knowledge of many people in that country.
But okay, let me now bring in Lawyer Fati.
And people were appointed to top position without any scrutiny. Nobody scrutinized their
Exactly.
appointment.
Lawyer Party, in as much as
So
we are
this
discussing
chapter is ensure that things like that do not happen
exactly.
in the future.
Thank you, MK. Let me now bring in Lawyer Fatty here. In as much we are discussing this draft, we need to understand this is not just around President Barrow.
Exactly.
I mean, this constitution will be here for posterity. But having a section like this one removed, isn't it creating that blanket for leaders to do whatever they want, abuse office and do it, and nothing will come after them after they leave office? Because that's what we are saying here.
Well, let's have the opinion of my
Yes,
brother
I am.
So what do you think?
See, with respect to my my learned senior and brother, Mr. Dabo, while I can understand perhaps where he's coming from, but with respect, I disagree with him. I disagree on the basis that I understand and I agree with him that generally, constitutions need to be narrow, and then you give Parliament power to legislate, to give meat and substance to those provisions of the Constitution. So the Constitution is the skeleton, and the acts become the body to give life to those provisions of the Constitution. However, we have to look at our own context to understand the rationale behind this. So for 22 years, the Constitution was amended for more than 50 times or so.
Yes.
The Constitution was hijacked to perpetuate and elongate a system. Through the same Constitution as well, we concentrated power in the hands largely of one individual. Coming from that history, I think this is us saying, to prevent history repeating itself, it is important that we insulate sealed public institutions and how public power is exercised against abuse and stuff like that. And therefore, let's add a little bit more than less to ring fence, to safeguard the Constitution. So in our own context, generally, yes, it needs to be narrow, but in our own context, I understand why it is broad and long, because that is the rationale, because of where we are, our history and where we're coming from. So there was a lot of abuse, and therefore any law, and I understand what Mr. Dabo is saying in relation to Chapter 5 being more about aspirations and morals and ideals, but it goes beyond that. Like I said, Kenya has it, South Africa has it too. And the reason South Africa is because of the history of South Africa and Kenya and other countries as well. So in our own context, what we are aspiring is that, remember, the state was captured for 22 years. So what we are now aspiring is that anybody who exercises any semblance of public power and public function needs to conduct themselves in a certain manner that is consistent with our aspirations as people, in dignity and that is consistent with credibility.
I know for sure, I mean, with the tune of the debate, I mean, regarding this draft constitution, whether it will be passed in Parliament or not is something that we have to wait and see, though I know it's going to be very challenging. I mean, the leader of the United Democratic Party, Bausenu Dabo, spoke to senior journalist Farouk Toure of Kerfatu. Let's take a listen to what he has to say regarding, I mean, the 2024 draft constitution.
There has been no consultations with us, which I think is unfortunate. I think there should not be consultation with UDP, but consultations with all other political parties, and even the CSOs. There should be consultations with them, because this is the national document.
Yeah.
You know, it should not be kept to their chest. But one thing that I know is our position. The entire country knows what our position is. That if any provision is omitted from that draft,
The original draft.
from the original draft, we will vote against it. The government does not have the intention of bringing a new constitution. That is why they have brought one different from that prepared by the CRC. After all, what was the purpose of mandating the CRC to undertake the assignment? What was the purpose of the countrywide consultations? There was even consultations in the diaspora. And all those ideas and views were collated and presented to the government. But even before the matter was taken to National Assembly, in this very studio, we had young people saying that we are not going to vote for that constitution.
Yeah.
I mean, there were leakages from sittings of the cabinet.
Yeah.
Government saying that we cannot accept this. Certain appointments, should really be vetted by National Assembly. In fact, even ministerial appointments should be vetted by National Assembly. So what is there that diminishes the president's power? You have provisions in other laws that says the president can nominate an individual for appointment, but to be vetted and approved by National Assembly.
Yeah.
And if one person, if an individual is rejected, another person who is subsequently nominated cannot be. I mean, you can have that. Well, because personally, I think the position of the Inspector General Police
Should definitely be
should definitely be one that is kept away from executive interference.
That's by Ousainou Darboe, the leader of the main opposition party, United Democratic Party, via speaking to senior journalist Fatou Toure of Kerfatou. You've heard from him, I mean, that the government is not really serious about bringing in this draft constitution. Is it a deliberate move? Do you agree that it is just a deliberate move by the executive to have the draft failed in Parliament? Hence the reason for just doing their own amendments?
I totally agree. I totally disagree with him because when the draft constitution was about to be introduced, like he said, for I don't know how he got the source that there were leakages from the cabinet, but there were leakages from the UDP camp as well. That was very evident that the UDP was ready to kill that constitution. They have expressed their position on that, and they communicated to the public in a very clear terms, because the UDP was just interested on the president as a person. They forget to look at the greater good. And Ousainou Darboe himself was on the menu. They took a position about the constitution. Now, it was highly political.
Yeah.
And I would have to, everybody would have to agree that it was highly political. UDP took their position. They were after the president, nothing more, nothing less about that constitution.
And MK, will you support the passage of this 2024 draft in Parliament in just under 20 seconds?
Already we know that the government itself, has killed this draft constitution before, the National Assembly could pass it. Because you hear that the opposition UDP position is that, if they touch the draft, they're not going to, vote for it.
Interesting.
And, and without a compromise in the Parliament, NPP members, plus the independent cannot pass this bill into law.
Who said we cannot get UDP? Who said we cannot get UDP on our side? Are you speaking for the opposition?
Okay.
No, I'm not speaking for the opposition. I'm telling you, neither the UDP or the NPP have a majority at the Parliament.
We have earlier succeeded in getting UDP to vote for us.
Thank you.
And we'll get it.
Let me not bring in lawyer party here.
For this draft constitution in order for it to be passed.
Thank you so much.
Both of NPP and the UDP don't have the absolute majority.
Thank you so much.
That is why it will be difficult to have this draft passed, because already the government has killed it at its reintroduction stage.
Thank you so much, MK.
Omitting and deleting key fundamental chapters in the draft constitution.
Thank you, MK. Lawyer Fati, you have heard from the leader of the United Democratic Party that their position is very clear. They are voting against it. Could we say it's dead and buried again before it even gets to Parliament? Or do you think there could be change of positions before then?
Not entirely. There's still 100 days, 90 days plus 10 days. So we could still have more than 3 months before this document is tabled before Parliament for second reading. But
in just 10 seconds,
it is going to be difficult.
Okay.
Because the threshold is very high. Okay. For it to pass, you need three quarters of all NAMs, of which all of them have to vote, and out of that, 3/4 will have to endorse. to pass the parliament's threshold, and then in the referendum.
It's interesting, yeah.
In the referendum, 50%.
Yeah.
50% of the registered
must vote, and 75% must vote yes.
Of those who
so we have a
voted
long
with
way
us.
to
So
go.
it's
Well,
still
interesting. Thank you so much, Lawyer Abdoulaye Fati, who is the Secretary General of the Gambia Bar Association. It was good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Lamin K. Saidi, advisor to the President. It was good to have you on the program as well. And my friend and brother, Saini M.K. Marina, former head of media and communications, CRC, and founder and editor of the Alcamba Times, joining us live from the United States of America. MK, it was good to have you on the program. Well, viewers, with that, we bring an end to this week's edition of your weekly State of Affairs program. Do join us next week. Until then, bye-bye from me and the entire team.